Well, listen, guys, you're going to get it straight up tonight. I ain't pulling no punches. You're going to get my opinion on a number of things. First off, I think we're in an awful mess. First off, my opinion on North Korea. Now, I'm looking at an article here from the Washington Post. Let me just crank this, start the chart. Anyway, listen, I'm looking at an article from the Washington Post. And it says that Kim Jong-un played Trump like a Stradivarius. Now, normally I would I don't like the Washington Post very much and everything, but in this case, I think that they got something here when they're talking about Kim Jong-un has played Trump. They're always trying to make Trump look bad, and essentially they're trying to make Trump look bad by saying that Kim Jong-un has played him like a Stradivarius. But I think there's truth to that statement, though. I think that the North Koreans have been trying to buy time. And the thing is all that aside, just kind of forget about it and just pretend like none of this stuff has happened. Getting back to the nitty-gritty on the whole thing, the United States is left with several options. Option number one. The United States can go ahead and just say, well, okay, we're going to allow North Korea to become a nuclear power and proliferate and build all the nuclear weapons they want. Okay? Option number two, the United States goes back to trying to hit them with hit North Korea with sanctions and stuff like that. Well, they've already tried that, didn't get them anywhere. North Korea just does workarounds of sanctions and stuff, and it doesn't get them anywhere. So that's likely not a very viable option. Option number three, pound the hell out of North Korea. It's not a very good option either, because North Korea is a lot more powerful than people think they are. They've been building up weapons for years. They're bristling with weapons. So here's the thing where we stand with all this is, option number two is not a viable option. So we just forget that. So we got option one and option three basically available. One of these two options is actually going to happen, because things are not going to stay the way they are right now. That just isn't going to happen. Everybody out there, you guys know it, I know it, things are not going to stay the way they are right now. The United States is not going to leave things the way they are right now. Now, let's explore option one and option three, because option one was to allow North Korea to build up a nuclear Armageddon. Let them build all the nuclear weapons they want, and let them just bristle themselves with nuclear weapons. Let them become as powerful as the United States in the end with nuclear weapons. If they're building them, the United States is not really so much into building nuclear weapons so much anymore. Russia's still building them, so maybe they can compete with Russia. But, I mean, to allow North Korea to build all the nuclear arsenal that they want to build, unlimited nuclear weapons, is basically option number one. Okay? And then option number three, to pound the hell out of North Korea. Go in there and carpet bomb them. Do a strategic strike and knock them out, knock their power out, knock their power base out. That's option number three. So we got option one and three. What's wrong with option number one? Now, there's a lot of people out there probably thinking to themselves, hey, you know, option one sounds pretty good. Just forget about North Korea and let them build all the nuclear weapons they want. Well, I'll tell you about option number one. It would work for a little while. It would work for a while. It would probably work for about the next 3 years. And it would end the situation with North Korea. Just basically let them build all the nuclear weapons they want. It would work for the next 3 or 4 years. But at the end of 3 or 4 years from now, North Korea will have built up enough nuclear weapons that nobody's going to touch them, and I mean nobody. They will be a full-scale nuclear power in about 3 or 4 years from now. Okay? What North Korea will do at that point is they're gonna hold that area of the earth over there near Japan and China and is strategically located in the Far East, that whole region. They're going to hold it hostage, and they're going to impose their will on South Korea. This is what will happen in 3 or 4 years. But we would get 3 or 4 good years out of it before that happened. And then in the end, what it would result in, it would result in nuclear war. Because if they start holding those other countries hostage in there, it would increase tensions, and we would have some sort of a nuclear conflict. And North Korea would have enough power to blow everyone up. It would be really bad. So basically that option amounts to kicking the can down the road for about 3 or 4 years and then dealing with the problem then, but we'd have a much bigger problem than we have now. Okay? So that's not a very good option. Now what about option number 3? Option number 3 is we go in and carpet bomb, we go in and blow up North Korea, and we go in and take them out. That's not a good option either. Because North Korea has got artillery and everything that could, in 5 minutes, they could be in Seoul, blasting the hell out of Seoul. They got weapons galore. They're very powerful militarily speaking, North Korea is. So that's not really a good option either. So we got to pick between 2 bad options. It's the old saying, between the devil and the deep blue sea. We've got ourselves in a position now where we're almost like, sometimes armies have got themselves in a position where they've been cut off. They got the ocean on one side of them and the other army pushing them into the ocean, and they don't have anywhere to go. And that's where we're at right now. We don't have anywhere to go. We don't have any good viable options in this situation. So that's that problem. Now, we've got other problems on the earth right now. Okay, listen, what we're looking at right here is we're looking at China, and we're looking at these ghost cities. Now, these are absolutely the most interesting things I've ever seen in my life. I was able to look at pictures like this, but I wasn't able to see these things up close. But this last week, I watched a video on YouTube, and these guys are going in, and they were taking a look at these columns. You see these support columns underneath these buildings. Now, if you look at about the first 4 floors of each one of these buildings, actually it's the first 3 floors. I'm counting 1, 2, 3. The first 3 floors of these buildings. It looks like there's no plaster on it or anything. It looks like just concrete pilings and concrete supports. But I got a close look at these concrete pilings, and they're not concrete pilings. What they actually are is the Chinese have went in there and they've built a lot of this out of wood and cardboard or whatever they could find, mixed it in with the concrete at the base of these buildings. And these buildings go up, they probably mixed this cardboard and concrete or whatever they could find, old pieces of sponge, whatever they could find laying around. They mixed it in with the concrete and they built this as cheap as they could possibly build it. Now, they look fairly nice, these buildings. But what are you noticing here when you look at the base of this building here? You're noticing dirt everywhere. This is old farmers' fields. They've went into farmers' fields. They haven't even paved the ground. It's not even paved. They've just rammed these buildings up as fast as they darn could, and whatever they could find, probably straw, mixed it in with the cement, whatever they could find. Mud, mixed it in with the cement. Old pieces of brick, mixed it in with the cement, whatever they could find. And old rocks, probably a lot of rocks out of these old farmers' fields went into these buildings, into the cement, whatever they could find. And when they built these apartments in here, first off, you can see that the streets down below are unpaved and unfinished. There's no electrical running into these places. It's all dark inside. And they've put all these apartments in. Now, if you go up the side of the building here, you know what you see? Each one of these buildings, you see 4 sections, or 3 sections, 3 or 4 sections. Each section on each floor has got like 2 apartments. So there's like 6 apartments or something on each floor, you know? And going all the way up, there's floor after floor after floor after floor. On this building alone, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 floors. and with like 6 or 7 apartments on each floor. You know, so there's hundreds of apartments in each building, and then when you count the buildings, there's many, 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 many of these buildings. So you got thousands of apartments. All these apartments have been sold, and they got no electricity and no water in them, and they're probably only half finished. What I mean by half finished is probably when you go inside the apartment, it's probably like been put together really sloppy, and it's probably only half finished. Probably the flooring hasn't been laid or whatever. They've sold these apartments as investments to the Chinese people who have money to invest. And they've gobbled them all up. And so what they've done, by gobbling the price up of all these apartments that are absolutely useless because nobody's living in them, they're in a serious state of decay and dilapidation. That's what they're going down to every year. Every year that goes by, these buildings are dilapidating. So the apartments inside, with nobody living in them, thousands after thousands. Who needs thousands and thousands and thousands of apartments that aren't being lived in buildings with no electricity or no water or no sewage or anything else? Who needs it? The only thing it's good for is an investment. But what happens to that investment when the price starts to fall out from underneath this whole thing? And these apartments, there's no real what do you call it? There's no real actual market for them. It's just all a speculative. It's as big a bubble as Bitcoin was when it was at 20,000. And what happened? Well, now Bitcoin's at 6,000 and something. Well, that's what these real estate is going to come down to in China. Let's take a look at a couple of the pictures here of it. Let's take a look here. Here's a bunch more of them. Now, this is looking at them from a ways off, and they don't look that bad from a ways off, but it's the same thing, different city, another one of these ghost cities, and there's nobody in the street. Do you see anybody walking in the street here? You see any cars? No, because all these apartments and these buildings are all sold, again, and there's nobody in them. So now, here's a bunch right here. The Chinese are building these ones. Look at everyone's during construction. It's all being constructed. Of these buildings, but there's nobody in them, and they're all been sold. Every apartment in them's been sold. From what I understand, here's a look at the shoddy construction. It's just falling to pieces. It's just all like they've put it together with straw or whatever, and it's just all flakes apart. It's sort of like this sort of a thing, you know. The whole thing is just. It's just going to come down in the end. It's just all going to come down. Look at them. Look at these buildings. You can tell that they're not put together good. Some of them look like they're leaning a bit. They're just crappy looking construction. They're just putting them up as fast as they can put them up so that they can sell every apartment that's in them. Now, from what I understand, 60%. Look at this picture here. Look. You can tell there's nobody in those apartments. They haven't even put the windows in them. From what I understand, 60% of the Chinese economy is in this right here. In all these ghost cities and empty apartments. This makes up 60% of the Chinese economy. Can we say the biggest collapse the world has ever seen is coming? Because they can't sustain these investments, because these investments in these apartments, and what's been holding the real estate market up in China, up until now, has been the fact that the Americans are buying Chinese products. Well, all of a sudden, we got a trade war going on. Can we say crash in the Chinese economy and then the real estate market collapsing? But, I mean, what's been holding it up has been impressive amounts of money that China has been actually borrowing. This is what it's all going to turn into in the end. This picture right here of an abandoned city that's actually crumbling to pieces. That's what these cities are going to do. They're actually going to crumble into the ground. Here's another picture of them, and there's nobody there. It's just all empty apartments everywhere. As far as the eye, here's another picture showing. Oh, where is it? They go for far as the eye can see, these apartments, and they're all dilapidated, and there's nobody in them, and they're all empty, and it's going to be a total mess. It's going to be a total mess. They're going to look like this, like after a little while. They're going to look like abandoned, vacant. They're going to look like this. This is what it's all going to look like after a little while. It's going to look like this. This is what the Chinese apartments are going to look like in about 2 or 3 years from now, because they were built with whatever materials the Chinese could find, and they sold these apartments, and this is what their apartments are going to look like. This is what their investment is going to look like. And right now, it's like $1 million apartments, and this is what they're going to look like within the next short period of time, because they weren't not put together properly. They scrimped on the construction, and this is what we're going to have in the Chinese ghost cities. And they really are going to be ghost cities. The Chinese economy is going to come to a crashing, absolute, total annihilation, a total mess. This is going to be a mess. Okay? These cities, they're massive. It says, very impressive Chinese city, but where are all the people? That's exactly what I want to know. Look how impressive they are. They go off for miles, but where are all the people? There is no people. But every building's been sold. Look at this. It goes for miles and miles. Look off in the distance. Look at them building new ones all across the shoreline there. You know? It's absolutely astounding. So anyway, this has been your report for the night. We got massive problems coming up in the world. If the Chinese economy goes down, so goes the rest of the world. It will go down with it. The Chinese stock market started to go down just a few months back ago, and it caused shudders in all of the stock markets on Earth. This is a horrendous situation we're in, and people can't see it, what's coming. It's going to catch them by surprise, and it's all going to hit before the end of this year because of the tightening programs that are going on with the Federal Reserve and the other central banks. They're thinking that they're getting away with this stuff, and in truth, what's really going to happen is the central banks are going to urinate themselves when this situation hits. When this collapse hits, it's going to be such a big collapse that the central banks are going to urinate themselves, quite literally, and they're not going to know what to do, and their first reaction is going to be the great print, the biggest print of all time. And what I mean by print, they're not actually going to print the money, but they're going to create the money by pushing a digital button on a digital machine that creates the money. And they'll create as much money as they need to create. And when they do that, confidence is going to be lost. We're going to see, here's one of the things I want to talk to you about. It's very important. Counterparty risk. First off, everything we see in the system has counterparty risk. All of your digital assets, your digital dollars, all full of counterparty risk, and this counterparty risk is connected into the derivative system. The whole thing is going to melt down, and everything you have in the bank right now has counterparty risk. Okay. Things that don't have counterparty risk are going to become extremely, extremely valuable, because people are going to be grasping for anything that doesn't have any counterparty risk. And there's very few things that don't have any counterparty risk, but you got to hold them in your own hand, or in your own possession, I should say. Cryptocurrencies don't have, the ones, not the exchange-traded funds sort of ones, not the exchange-traded Bitcoin or anything like that, but the real Bitcoin, the real cryptocurrencies, if you hold them in your own wallet, there's no counterparty risk. If they're not on an exchange, I should say. Also, another thing that doesn't have any counterparty risk is physical gold and silver in your own possession. No counterparty risk. And what you're going to find is assets with no counterparty risk are going to become worth fantastic amounts. It's going to make you rich, a small amount of any asset that doesn't have any counterparty risk. Because everything has been all tied together with these. It's an amazing situation we're in. The Earth has never seen a situation like this before, and we've never seen a collapse like this before, and we're never going to see a collapse like this again. This is going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be astounding. You know, and these buildings are already going down into dilapidation. but the price of the real estate. Look at this building right here. It's all dilapidated. It's fallen to pieces. Every apartment in that building's probably already been sold, and those apartments are probably at an astoundingly high amount of money. And China is all like this everywhere. And I mean, it's just worthless because the whole thing is just garbage. It's absolute garbage. You know, who's going to live in that? But they're not living in it. It's just an investment. You know, it's overinflated real estate bubbles, overinflated asset bubbles, and the whole thing's going to come down in a massive. It's going to be massive inside the ghost cities. So listen, thank you guys for listening to this show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye.